The Sega Dreamcast is like the Jeep Wrangler of video game consoles. Now, what I mean by that is, unless you actually owned one or had an opportunity to really play with one, you might not understand the appeal and why it's so cherished and beloved by so many people. The console was not only ahead of its time in terms of features and accessories, but the library was so good, we've seen many ports of Dreamcast games continually pop up on consoles all over, including present day. But what I want to talk about today are the impressive Dreamcast ports that came out for the PlayStation Portable. There's not many of them. I would have liked to seen much more. But the fact that these games were actually able to be ported over to the PSP with relative ease is impressive in and of itself. Up first, we have Crazy Taxi Fare Wars. This is basically a bundle of Crazy Taxi and Crazy Taxi 2. Crazy Taxi is one of those games that was very genre bending. It's not quite a racing game, it's not quite an exploration game, and it's not just all chaos with a timer. It's a perfect blend of all of these things and just made for a really unique experience. The arcade style of gameplay went really well with a handheld console. I was the kind of person that played my PSP in short bursts here and there, and a game like Crazy Taxi was absolutely perfect for it. It has all of the features, gameplay, and characters that the Dreamcast version has, and looks really good on the PSP. The soundtrack for the PSP version is different, which is kind of a bummer because that original musical score, particularly the tracks made by Offspring, were really iconic and synonymous with this game. The tracks in the PSP version aren't bad. Another thing they took out, which is very much welcome, is the shameless plugs and advertising that the original Crazy Taxi had. When Crazy Taxi first came out, it was cool to see real licensing and branding in a video game, but keeping that stuff in would have made it really dated, so it's a very welcome change. At its core, Crazy Taxi is one of those games that you could just keep coming back to again and again. And even when you get sick of it, you take a short break, come back to it, and it feels like you're playing it for the first time all over again. It looks and plays great and fits right in with the PSP's library. Up next, we have Puyo Pop Fever, which is a puzzle game that came out for the Sega Dreamcast. I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with Puyo Puyo, how it's played, and how great of a puzzle game it actually is. As far as puzzle games on the Dreamcast go, I preferred Sega Swirl over Puyo Pop Fever, but this is still a great game nonetheless. It falls a bit flat on the PSP because the PSP has some really good puzzle games. So although it's a great game, I wouldn't rank it as one of the best puzzle games on the console. It's still a super fun game, and it's a great Dreamcast port. Up next, we have the Power Stone collection. Power Stone was one of those games that even when the Dreamcast was said and done, I would constantly run back to the console, plug in 4 controllers, and just have a blast with a bunch of friends. For those of you who may never played Power Stone, it's pretty much an arena-style brawl game, almost like Smash Bros. On a 3-dimensional plane. Many games in the past have tried to implement this formula, but Power Stone was one of the few that actually got it right. The gameplay is extremely addictive and a hell of a lot of fun. The Power Stone collection comes with Power Stone 1 and 2, and in the port of Power Stone 1, they actually added the extra characters that were in Part 2, essentially making this port better than the original game. The complete core gameplay is intact, and you could easily play these games for hours on end. Power Stone's one of those franchises that I would actually really like to see make a comeback. Like, I would love to see a Power Stone 3, like on maybe the Nintendo Switch or something like that. And if you're a PSP owner, I highly recommend checking this game out. These next 2 games are purely a bonus. They're not Sega Dreamcast ports, but they're 2 games that feel like they should have been on the Sega Dreamcast. And I'm sure if the Dreamcast had been alive and kicking at the time, they probably would have been. First is the Sonic Heroes franchise. This is essentially a racing game featuring Sonic characters. 2 characters racing through a level on a 2-dimensional plane, and it's just highly addictive and super fun. Up next, we have Outrun Coast to Coast, which is one of the best racing games on the PlayStation Portable. It has all of the gameplay of the original Outrun game, just with upgraded graphics, upgraded level design, and is essentially a retro game formula just done to absolute perfection. If you're a Sega Dreamcast fan and you're looking for a few games that have that Dreamcast-like feel, Sonic Heroes and Outrun Coast to Coast are 2 games that will definitely satisfy that craving. I would have loved to have seen more Dreamcast games get ported over to the PSP. Nonetheless, these are fantastic ports, and if you've never had a chance to play them, I highly recommend checking them out. Whether you're a fan of the Dreamcast and you want to relive some of the great games from its library, or you're a PSP owner and looking for some fun games to play on the console, you can't go wrong with any of these. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, this is Ness, signing out.